The mysterious death of Kendrick Johnson. In January of 2013, a quiet high school in Valdosta, Georgia became the center of a national controversy, one that still divides investigators, the communities, and the public more than a decade later. Kendrick Johnson was a 17-year-old student at Lowndes High School. He was known as respectful, athletic, and close to his family. Kendrick played football and basketball, and his parents believed sports would one day help him earn a college scholarship. Like most teenagers, he had dreams of the future, dreams that would come to an abrupt and horrifying end. On the morning of January 10th, Kendrick arrived at school as usual. He attended classes and was later seen heading toward the old gym. Students often stored personal belongings inside rolled-up wrestling mats standing upright against the gym wall. Kendrick had done this before, placing his gym shoes inside one of the mats for safekeeping. At some point during the school day, Kendrick went to retrieve them. He never came back. Hours later, after classes had ended, another student entered the gym to get his own shoes. That's when he noticed something strange. Inside one of the wrestling mats, he saw legs pointing straight up. Panicked, the student ran for help. School officials arrived, followed by police and emergency responders. When the mat was unrolled, they found Kendrick Johnson's body wedged inside, upside down. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Almost immediately, authorities declared Kendrick's death a tragic accident. According to their theory, Kendrick had leaned into the mat to retrieve his shoes, slipped, and became stuck headfirst. Unable to free himself, they claimed he died from positional asphyxia. But from the very beginning, Kendrick's family believed something far more sinister had occurred. When Kendrick's parents were allowed to see his body, they were shocked. His face was severely swollen and unrecognizable. There were visible marks on his neck. To them, it looked like their son had been beaten. The autopsy only raised more questions. Kendrick's internal organs were missing and replaced with newspaper. Officials explained that this was a standard procedure performed by the funeral home due to decomposition during transport. But the Johnson family insisted they had never been informed and felt deeply disturbed by the explanation. A second, independent autopsy was later conducted. That pathologist concluded Kendrick died from blunt force trauma to the neck, classifying the death as a homicide. Now there were two completely different conclusions. As news of the case spread, public attention exploded. Social media, news outlets, and true crime communities began examining every detail. Many people questioned how a healthy 17-year-old athlete could accidentally die inside a mat without making noise, without struggling, and without anyone noticing. Then came the controversy. Rumors surfaced that Kendrick had been involved in a dispute with other students. Some pointed fingers at classmates connected to local law enforcement. Lawsuits were filed by Kendrick's family, accusing others of murder and a cover-up. These accusations were never proven in court. The individuals named denied all involvement, and no arrests were made. Still, questions remained. Surveillance footage from the school showed Kendrick entering the gym, but there was no footage of anyone else entering or leaving during key timeframes. Officials claimed the cameras had blind spots or were not recording properly at the time. To the public, that explanation felt unsatisfying. Why weren't all students questioned thoroughly? Why was the scene ruled an accident so quickly? And why did independent findings contradict the official cause of death? Multiple investigations were launched over the years. The FBI reviewed the case. The Department of Justice examined the evidence. Each time, authorities concluded there was insufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges. The official ruling remained unchanged. Accidental death. For Kendrick's parents, that ruling was devastating. They have spent years fighting for justice, organizing protests, filing lawsuits, and speaking publicly about their belief that their son was murdered. They argue that Kendrick's injuries, the handling of the evidence, and the inconsistencies in the investigation point to a larger failure, if not an intentional cover-up. The community of Valdosta became deeply divided. Some residents believe authorities did everything they could. Others believe the truth was buried to protect certain individuals. As time passed, lawsuits were dismissed, appeals failed, and public attention slowly faded. But for Kendrick's family, time never healed the wound. Today, Kendrick Johnson's case remains one of the most debated true crime stories in modern American history. There is no consensus, no definitive answer, only two opposing narratives: an accident or a murder. A young man went to school one morning and never came home. And whether the truth lies buried in evidence, lost in mistakes, or hidden behind silence, one thing is certain: Kendrick Johnson's death left behind a mystery that refuses to fade. The mysterious death of Kendrick Johnson, the investigation, theories, and lingering doubts. In the weeks following Kendrick Johnson's death, the official explanation remained firm: a tragic accident. Authorities maintained that Kendrick fell headfirst into a rolled-up wrestling mat and died from positional asphyxia. Case closed. But for Kendrick's family, the investigation had barely begun. Almost immediately, the Johnson family noticed what they believed were serious failures in how the case was handled. The gym where Kendrick was found was not treated like a potential crime scene. The wrestling mats were removed. The area was cleaned. Evidence that might have explained what truly happened was gone. To the family, this felt less like an accident and more like a rush to judgment. As they pushed for answers, disturbing details began to surface. Kendrick's autopsy photographs showed bruising on his neck and body. His face was badly swollen, his features distorted. Experts hired by the family argued that these injuries were inconsistent with accidental suffocation. They believed Kendrick had been assaulted. A second autopsy supported their concerns, ruling the death a homicide caused by blunt force trauma to the neck. This directly contradicted the original findings, leaving the public with two competing explanations and no clear truth. Then came the timelines. Surveillance footage showed Kendrick entering the gym, but critical gaps existed. Cameras that should have captured activity near the mats were either not recording or missing entirely. Investigators claimed the cameras were outdated and unreliable, but critics questioned how such an important area could go unmonitored. The lack of footage fueled speculation. Some began to believe Kendrick encountered someone else in the gym that day, someone whose actions were never captured on camera. As rumors spread, attention turned toward other students. Online communities began naming suspects, including classmates with personal conflicts involving Kendrick. Some of those named were related to local law enforcement officials, which only intensified public suspicion. The Johnson family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, alleging that Kendrick had been murdered and that authorities had covered it up. The lawsuit accused specific individuals, though no criminal charges were ever filed. Those accused denied everything. Courts eventually dismissed the lawsuit, stating there was not enough evidence to support the claims. In fact, the Johnson family was later ordered to pay legal fees after the court ruled that accusations made against certain individuals were unsubstantiated. For many observers, this ruling reinforced the idea that the case was never strong enough to pursue criminally. For others, it raised a darker question: was the truth being buried beneath legal technicalities and influence? Federal agencies became involved. The FBI reviewed the case. The Department of Justice examined the evidence. Independent experts analyzed the autopsy findings. Each time, the conclusion was the same: there was no prosecutable evidence of homicide. The official cause of death remained accidental. Yet public doubt refused to disappear. Why were Kendrick's organs removed and replaced with newspaper without clear communication? Why were key witnesses never thoroughly questioned? Why did independent medical opinions differ so drastically? These unanswered questions kept the case alive long after the headlines faded. For Kendrick's parents, the emotional toll was overwhelming. They continued to speak publicly, attend rallies, and share their son's story. They believed that even if the legal system had failed, public awareness might one day bring the truth to light. But over time, attention shifted elsewhere. New cases emerged. New tragedies took the spotlight. And Kendrick Johnson's name slowly became another unresolved chapter in true crime history. Today, the case remains officially closed but emotionally open. To some, Kendrick's death was a heartbreaking accident caused by a risky habit students had normalized. To others, it was a violent act followed by a deeply flawed investigation. What makes the case so haunting is not just how Kendrick died, but how divided the truth remains. A young man entered a school gym and never walked out. And more than a decade later, the question still lingers. Was Kendrick Johnson the victim of a tragic accident, or a crime that will never be fully acknowledged? Until that question is answered, his story remains unfinished.